Good afternoon, friends. Thank you for joining me today with a new episode of Unbreakable Voices. And I am so excited about something that's coming up here with Unbreakable Enterprises in the next couple of weeks. And we're going to talk about that in some great detail. But first, I want to plant the seed. We've been spending some time over the last couple of weeks with all of our guests talking about the importance of one specific word, one phrase that I believe brings everything back to focus. And that word is alignment. In fact, that word is so powerful that when we are out of alignment, we feel it. We feel it in areas with our relationships. We feel it in areas in our health. We feel it in areas in our performance, our production. Everything that we touch when we find ourselves out of alignment is affected. And, I think that this year, 2026, that we're getting ready to jump into is the year of saying, I need to be in alignment. And for you, maybe that's alignment in business relationships. Maybe it's alignment with your health. I don't know where it is, but our guest today is going to talk to us about some areas where she found herself getting into alignment with her network and how that changed everything. So I am so excited to bring my friend, Carrie Kass, founder, CEO, and all things with Impact Alliance. Oh, I'm totally saying it wrong. Carrie.
Impact Flow Advisors.
Impact Flow Advisors. Thank you, Carrie. This new adventure that you have been on has been something actually that you have been cultivating and building over the last couple of years. You just probably didn't know it yet, right?
Yes.
And isn't it fun when you see things come into alignment and how everything shifts? So, Carrie, talk to us about Impact Flow Advisors and how you're using your alignment with connections. But first, tell us just who you are and what you're excited about as you come into 2026.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Carrie Kass. I'm so glad to be back here. As Teresa mentioned, I am the founder and CEO of Impact Flow Advisors, which is my own consulting company that came about very organically. I was in the healthcare regenerative space for about 14 years. And through that time, I was new to Austin back in 2011. Just really made the decision to immerse myself in the business community and the healthcare community, just anything that I could get my hands on. And I really cultivated not just referral relationships to where I was working, but friendships and community connections and other businesses in the Austin community. And this May, the business that I was working with got acquired by private equity. I know a lot of people are very familiar with what happens when that happens. And my position was unfortunately eliminated. So what that caused me to do is just really start looking at, okay, what is next? And what happened was a result of all the work that I had put in over the last number of years. And within 2 to 3 weeks, I had no less than 25 recommendation letters coming my way. And these were from people, not just friends or people that I had worked with directly. I had doctors and clinics who had been referral relationships with my old company. I had other people in the business community. I had just network connections that I had developed, people that had worked for me previously. So, I mean, it just really naturally started happening. People reaching out, what can I do? Like, where can I send your resume? Who can I introduce you to? What do you need from me? Like, what can I do to help you? And then people started saying, well, what's next? Like, what are you doing now? Well, can you help me with this? Or what do you think about this? And so this business idea of starting my own consulting company really just kind of spiraled into its own thing. And here we are. It wasn't really my plan, as the hot take is it wasn't on my 2025 bingo card, but
Right.
but here we are, and it's just working out really, really great. And it's just opening up so many other doors as well. And honestly, the timing of it all couldn't have been more perfect than to align with the TEDx talk in November.
Right.
Because my talk was aptly titled "The Connected Commerce: Why Your Network is Your Net Worth." And I just had this story that kind of proved it and went right along with it. And so that was, it was just miraculous that was all happening in real time. And so I got to add that personal story in, not at the last minute, but kind of at the end. I was like, this wasn't originally part of the story, But now it really makes sense, right? Because now I'm saying, like, I built this and it worked for me. And now I'm telling you how to do it and showing you that it indeed does work.
Yeah. I think so much of that is powerful. And I want to unpack a little bit of it because when we go through a situation, it's easy to say this happened, this happened, this happened, right? Because we're looking back. But to be able from like a 3,000-foot view to see the situation happening is quite miraculous, as you said. But I want to talk about the word alignment and how this kind of the situation unfolded because a lot of times when we get out of alignment, we think, oh, it's something that I'm doing. Like maybe I'm on the road, the wrong road, I took a wrong turn. But in your situation, it was like a pothole jumped out of the middle of nowhere, right?
True. Yeah.
I mean, in your situation, somebody else's decision affected what you thought alignment looked like for your future, right?
Yeah.
And so many times when that happens, we have a choice. Like well, every time we actually have a choice, but not everybody chooses, okay, what does my flow look like again? A lot of people might get stuck in that, right? And find themselves in a place of discontent or really bitterness and those types of things. Like, dang it, I hit that pothole. That pothole jumped out of the middle of nowhere. And now I'm mad at the world. But you chose a different path. You chose, and I love the name of your company, Impact Flow. And we'll unpack flow in a minute because I think there's a whole concept around that. But let's talk about, how obviously it felt hard. Like when you got knocked over a little bit, that wasn't a fun thing to go through and probably hurt the pride, hurt many, many things. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. I think when anybody goes through something like that, especially when you have the longevity in a place or a situation or a relationship, it really does knock you on your feet when you don't see it coming. When you say it comes out of left field and that's what it feels like initially. But I took the time to really sit in it. And fortunately, we had a vacation planned like the week after I was done. So it was perfect alignment.
Yeah.
And just having that time to talk to my husband about it and really unpack, like, is this I mean, it's a big deal, but is it? And I found myself being jolted, but I wasn't really upset about it. And so then I started asking myself, like, why am I not that upset about it?
Yeah.
I mean, there were certain elements about it that I was kind of just still dealing with, but I wasn't upset about not being there anymore.
Sure.
And so then I started looking and going, okay, well, I've been making all these bold moves. I had this year of yes a few years ago where I really stepped out and started doing all these other things and saying no to things that were no longer serving me and really bringing things onto my plate that I wanted to do and take chances on, like being an author and stepping onto a stage and just all of these new things. And it just kind of made sense in that moment, like this is the catalyst for me to move forward.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my timing. And, my husband and I have even said, like, he goes, I don't know if I would have left on my own
Sure.
because I was very happy there. I was very content. I was very safe. I loved the people that I worked with. I loved the space that I was in. So I think it would have been difficult for me to make my own move and say, I'm getting out of here.
Right.
And so I just look at it as it was supposed to happen and I'm going to take it and run.
Well, you talked about the TEDx talk, and one of the closing lines in my talk that I share is, what if the crash was actually the thing that was supposed to set you free? Because in my talk about alignment, I talk about when we're out of alignment, whether it's our fault or somebody else's, right? When we find ourselves out of it, sometimes it takes a crash to make something happen. And obviously, in this particular situation, that jolt is the thing that set you free. And it's so fun, right?
Yeah.
To see that. And I think, again, one of the reasons that I think things have truly fallen into place for you was the preparation that you did. Right. Because even though you had this wonderful job and even though you had this place that you were happy with, there was a desire in you to be part of something bigger, to be building something else at the same time. And it was that fulfillment of that desire, I think, that prepared you for this launch.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say it frees you. One of my statements when I came home and told John was, this happened, but I feel freed.
Mm.
And I even looked at myself oddly for saying that. I was like, I don't know why I feel this, but I feel freed, right? And it did kickstart that thinking of, I've put all these things in motion. I have talked about building my own brand and doing these different things and aligning myself differently. And it just created that space for me to do so. So I think innately, even though I was still kind of reeling in the moment,
Sure.
I knew that in the back of my head. And so the so-called shackles that you feel, you
Right.
know, I was freed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a crazy feeling, and it
That's
was
really
really
cool.
hard to reconcile, the goods and the bads and the ups and the downs, all within 10 seconds of each
Sure.
other,
Sure. Sure.
because that's what it was. It was almost like a tornado in my head of like,
Wow.
"Whoa, what am I feeling?"
Right.
But looking back, it is what it is, and I'm so grateful for it, and I
Yeah.
can look back and say, I'm grateful for the time that I was there. I'm grateful for everything that I learned. I'm grateful for the work that I did to create these relationships and build this community, because when I needed it, it was right there.
Mm.
And I had everybody to fall on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that alludes to the word flow. When we find ourselves out of alignment, just like our vehicles, right? When our vehicle becomes out of alignment, and have you ever driven a car that's out of alignment, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. So my first car was out of alignment, and my dad was like, Teresa, you need to get that fixed, right? And I talk about that. But the thing that I remember most about my vehicle being out of alignment was that the only way to go straight down the road was to hold on, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
like white knuckling it all
Yeah.
the way down, because it's like this, if you don't, you're gonna go to the left, or you're going to go to the
Yeah.
right, or something, or your tires, whatever,
Mhm.
you're gonna have a problem. And when we think about that from a life's perspective, if we're out of alignment in life, what happens is same thing. We don't see it. It's not visible like it is in the car, but we are literally holding on to things for
Mhm.
dear life, because if we're out of alignment, things are pulling us and we have to hold tight. And so when we think about that from a place of just how we operate in the world, we find ourselves operating more out of hustle and
Mhm.
less out of flow.
Yes.
And when we operate out of hustle, we're like, I've got to make this happen. I've got to stay in the lane. I've got to do these things. The pressure and the stress and the tension of the world is on your shoulders. Have you ever felt like that?
Yes. In fact, when I got let go from my role this year, our family, which we don't have any kids, so it's just John and I, we're in this situation where John had left corporate America at the end of last year and ventured into entrepreneurialism,
Okay.
right? I'm a big advocate of that. I was his biggest cheerleader. It's like, you go do this,
Yeah.
right? Because this is what you're made for. I'm the bridge. And then the bridge got washed away. And so John and I were left looking at each other saying, okay, what's next? Right?
Right.
His things were already in motion. Once I got kind of past the logistics of not having a job and figuring all that kind of stuff out, we got in alignment with each other, because we started talking about, like, what do you really want to do to me? Right? Like, I can go apply for jobs. I can look on Indeed and LinkedIn, and which I did. And there were some that seemed interesting and interviewed for a few. And I was like, nothing really was lighting my fire. And I'm like, that's what I want at this point in life. I need something to light my fire, because this is what I told John when he was making that transition, right? I'm like,
Right.
you need somebody or something that lights your fire.
Right.
And so that's what I was looking for. And again, just by having conversations and tapping into my network, and I got so much confirmation from people like, why aren't you doing your own thing?
Right.
You're not going to go to work for anyone else. And there was a little bit of like, I don't know if that's what I want, or if that's what I'm really ready to do. And again, it's just happened so naturally and so organically, where I just had clients kind of falling into my lap because I knew them. the trust was already built. They knew what I could do. They knew what I was bringing to the table. And I just started signing on clients,
Wow.
and I have my biggest client going into 2026, and that flow, and I'll give a prime example of the network and how it
Yeah.
works for you. Um, the lady, Jessica, who I had hired, gosh, I had reached out to her probably 6 or 7 years ago to be a speaker at Ladies Lifestyle Network, which was a women's empowerment group that I was running at the time. Didn't know her, saw her on Instagram, blindly reached out to her, like, hey, I'd love for you to be a speaker at one of our events. She said yes. She came. We kept in touch after that. She got into kind of the marketing, SEO, website development kind of space, community networking. And I hired her to work at Charm, doing our social media, kind of community events and things like that. Fast forward to this year, she's working for the client that I'll be working with in 2026.
Wow.
And there was an open house. She invited me, hey, just come for the fun of it. The owner of that company went to the same college as I did. And this was after like a little bit of digging on LinkedIn. Went to the same school as me, grew up in Ohio, as did I. So I just reached out just to have a conversation because I'm like, hey, it's always good to know like a fellow Ohioan. And it's crazy that we went to the same school because, it was a private small school. So nobody really goes there, that you're going to find in Texas.
And you're both here in Austin.
I
Yes,
know.
Yes.
And so I was like, hey, oh my gosh, we went to the same school. Like you were 4 years behind me. So we weren't on campus at the same time, but close. And so we had this great conversation about Ohio and growing up there and the Ohio State Buckeyes. And he was like, well, hey, Jessica was telling me about what you've done in business. I would love to talk to you. And I was thinking it was going to be one of these, hey, I want to pick your brain kind of conversations. And it was just so authentic. And he's in a space where he needs what I can bring to the table. And I could not have written a more perfect situation for me to walk into. Just the relationship itself, the space that they're in, and wellness and longevity. And I call it life care instead of health care.
Ooh, that's so good.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's what it is. We don't talk about healthcare anymore.
Good.
And just like the perfect relationship. And I couldn't have scripted anything better for myself. And so not just talking about connected alignment, connected commerce, but like human alignment, I
Absolutely.
mean, just walking, it's so refreshing. And just to be able to like pinging ideas and bouncing off of each other. And every time we talk, we're both just like, this is so exciting.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to talk about timing with that for a moment, because one of the things that you said was, okay, I had this situation happen and I decided I needed to pause for a moment and I needed to ask myself a question. What do I want? And I want to ask you this question because I believe I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you what your thoughts are with it. Do you think that opportunity that you're going to be stepping into in January would have existed if you wouldn't have gotten still and asked, what do you want?
Probably not. Probably not. Yeah. I think you get what you put out there, and that can be positive or negative, right? I really took time to just kind of settle in and not be in a mad rush or panic to like, okay, I got to find another job or I have to do this. And, like, again, I'm at the point in life, what's next?
Right.
What kind of impact do I want to make? And what's the best way that I can make it? And what can I do to make money financially for our family, but that also allows me time to do the things that I'm passionate about? I am writing another book. That wasn't on my, checklist to do, but things like that, things like writing. I started a Substack account because I do love to write. And so writing an article a week is just kind of an outlet and just sharing with people, speaking on stages. And, the TEDx came about through this. So it just, I do think that by just sitting in that unknown and that silence sometimes and just really digging in, and you can call it manifesting, you can call it speaking what you want, you can call it whatever, but that's what I was doing. I was really just processing what is it that I want to do and
Right.
what impact can I make?
Right.
And that impact was my big word for 2025, especially after that,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
And impact, I love the word impact, okay,
mhm.
because I was working on something recently. And an impact is an outcome, right? And I think about an impact could be a very positive thing or it can be a very negative thing, right? When we think of something that hits, that's a crash, that's an impact,
Mhm.
right? But also an impact is something that we're creating legacy driven. I love it when you see words that have double meanings and you get to choose what meaning you put on
Yeah.
the word, right?
Yeah.
Because this situation could have literally been that crash negative impact,
Mhm.
right? But it became a catalyst for true life impact. And I
Yes.
I just I love that. And then again, the name of your company. I
Yeah.
mean, how beautiful is that? And I wanted to ask that question specifically, Carrie, because so many times I believe, number one, not many times I believe this, I believe this all the time, is that we are all designed for a purpose.
Mhm.
We are all designed by this desire to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And we find ourselves many times because of the hustle, because of that hustle energy instead of the flow, because of the obligation or the obligatory, whatever, because of the noise and the distractions that we hear all around us, because of the external pressures that we put on ourselves and the internal ones that we're never content with, right?
Mhm.
Because of all those things, it becomes a big challenge for people to be okay sitting still. In fact, there was a season that I literally had to put "be still" on my arm.
Mm.
And this was a season because literally I'm like, well, I need to remind myself that it's okay to be still. And on the outside of that be still moment, my world shifted and
Mhm.
is forever changed because I did what you did. I took the time to say, what is it that I want? And I want to say to anybody who feels like, okay, I don't know what's out of alignment, but I just don't feel content.
Mhm.
I don't know, what part of me is struggling, but I feel like there's more to life than this, right? That could be a warning sign,
Yes.
like that sign on your dashboard that is telling you something is out of alignment. And I think the first step of getting back into alignment is to recognize it.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what you did when you said, I need to sit still and I need to look inward instead of outward and figure out what I want.
Yes, very much so. And again, I'll push back to a few years ago when, I talk about the year of yes and when I took advantage of all these opportunities. And that was probably the starting point of where I felt a little stagnant, a little stuck, you
Mm,
know. And so I was just looking for different outlets for my creativity, for my personality, for building a community. And I did a lot of things in that. And it started to light me up. And
yeah,
what I wasn't doing was recognizing that maybe it was still where I was at was still, I don't want to call it part of the problem because it wasn't a problem in itself.
sure.
But for me, like what more was there to do?
Right.
And kind of my thoughts were stagnant and, stuck
Well,
in
you were
mud is
in a
the best
container.
word.
Yeah.
Yes. And when that was released, it is crazy getting around other people and even just through interviews and talking to some of my clients, like how the ideas are flowing. I'm just like bouncing off the walls essentially, like coming up with new ideas and
Yeah.
like different things that we can do and writing things down and again starting to write and just letting it all out and sharing with people. And that's what lights me up.
Mm,
So I'm doing so much again. I sat in that stillness and that silence and that kind of boredom,
mhm.
of like, okay, well, here's another Wednesday. We're getting up and I don't know what I'm doing. Right. But now it's like, okay, we are going into 2026 strong and lit up. And there's so many things happening. We have the Unbreakable conference. We're starting a new book project, like a huge client thing starting in 2026. Just so many, like the train is going and it's going fast. And I'm so excited to be, what do you call it? Not the captain of a train, but the engineer.
The
I don't know,
engineer.
whatever the guy
The
is who
engineer.
drives the train.
Yeah. The
Yes.
one that pulls. Yeah. Well, I think back. I want to take you back to the Carrie before the year of yes. What did your normal day look like?
Hmm. It was pretty, it was pretty cookie cutter, Monday through Friday. I was up at what, 6, whatever, 6:30, get ready, go to work. Clinic opened at 8. So I was either in the clinic or out in the community doing some marketing community work, but a steady Monday through Friday, definitely 8 to 5, and oftentimes doing community events or networking events after hours. When I wasn't doing that, it was kind of go home, go work out, have a quick dinner with the hubby, maybe watch something on TV and go to bed.
Yeah.
It was pretty uh, vanilla, and cookie cutter Monday through Friday. Um, and I was constantly thinking about work and I was stressing myself out,
Mm.
thinking about different things. And looking back now, I'm like, gosh, Carrie, it wasn't even your company. Like, you know? And
Yeah.
I know a lot of people tend to do that. And I am guilty as charged. And I did take an ownership in what I was doing. And I cared very deeply about the people on my team. And I was very passionate about what we were doing in that space,
Mhm.
but it still wasn't mine. And
Yeah.
that's what I started thinking about, and that's what made me go, okay, I've got to find something that's mine,
Sure.
right? Because I tend to give so much, and I have so much to give,
Right.
whether it's leadership or creativity or, just one-on-one communication and building relationships. It's like, how can I do that?
Mm.
And even with the women's empowerment group that I was running, it wasn't my brand.
Right.
So while I loved it and it gave me great experience and really connected me to a lot of people, I still support it today and I love what it stands for,
Mm.
but it wasn't mine ultimately.
Right.
And so I stepped away from that in February of this year. And then May came, and that was just like another thing that got chipped away. And that was the final one where it was just like, okay,
Yeah.
you've got nothing on your plate that you had 4 months ago.
Wow. Right.
Now what?
Now what?
Yeah.
Now, and I think that might be where you felt that sense of freedom,
Mhm.
right? I
Mhm.
love, again, as we kind of pull this back a little bit, y- you were an incredibly loyal, dedicated, committed person at work. I mean,
Mhm.
you truly grew this organization. And there's so many people, Carrie, that are like that, that they have this loyalty to the core. They wear the shirt, they drink out of the coffee cup. Like,
Mhm.
they are branded and they're bleeding the color of the organization,
Mhm.
right? And something in you obviously felt this little bit of discontent that said, but my impact is limited,
Yeah.
right? Because at the end of the day, even though the organization was great and your commitment level was high, their vision, their viewpoint on what impact looked like was probably no longer in alignment with what yours was,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a very okay place to be.
Mhm.
When we think about it, a lot of times, it's easy to look back at organizations and say, "Dang," which I've never heard you do this, by the way. But it's easy to look back at organizations. I personally did this when I left my banking career. At first, I was like, there was something wrong with that. Nah, the truth was that's a really awesome organization that helps a lot of people within their right, within their mission, and purpose, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes we grow out of alignment because we grow into who we were always supposed to be,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing to see.
Yes. And it's freeing,
Mhm.
right? And it kind of took me by surprise, honestly.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and I don't think many people get an opportunity to be with an organization for that length of time.
Mm.
And so I will always say I am grateful for that.
Mm.
I developed a family there,
Sure.
I developed community there. I met so many people. I had so many opportunities because of that.
Right.
So many people got to know me in the community because of that.
Right.
So yes, I'm grateful for it. But you are so correct. And probably in the last 3 to 4 years, I think was palpable to people. I mean, obviously I was doing other things. I'm writing in a book, I'm speaking more, I'm showing up on podcasts, and everybody's like, wait a minute, what
Yeah.
what is happening over here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And not in a bad way. I kind of looked at it as dual purpose. I'm like, whoever I'm with or working for, you get to come along for the ride, because I'm promoting whoever you are at that point in time when I'm on a stage or on a podcast or writing anywhere.
Right.
And so they did get to come along for the ride, but I think it was, my friends and close people to me knew that there was something else bubbling and bubbling under the surface. Nobody knew what it was yet. I didn't know what it was yet fully. Sometimes I don't think you see things fully until you have to.
Sure.
And I was in a
Usually looking
situation where I
back.
had to. Yes,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can only connect the dots looking backwards.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I think of all of the people that have had the chance to watch from the sidelines and see your I guess your evolution, right? It's been hope giving,
Mhm.
right?
I hope so. I hope so. I hope that people saw. I mean, I think there were a few days of tears in a few situations. And, I remember a picture came up from the UnBreakable conference in May.
Okay.
And I think
That
that
was the
was the
day
day
you found
after. It was
out.
like the day
Yes.
after, I think I found out. And I still showed up. I
Yeah.
still sat on the stage on that panel. But I had such a support group at that table with me. And as people started to find out, there was just this overwhelming feeling of like, I have people that have my back and that will support me and that will help me and that will promote me and will love on me. And that feeling is, you can't pay enough money for that.
You really can't. And I think as we look at the unbreakable life journey and we look at number one is identity and taking that very necessary step, Carrie, of saying, what do I even want? That's part of identity discovery, right? Because so much of us, I mean, I was in a bank for 15, 16 years. And the truth was, I grew up there. Like my identity started really getting formed there. And when I left, it was almost like my identity was still attached to it. But it really wasn't. It's just the external identity that I gave myself there, right? And so many people allow titles and positions and all of those things to become part of identity instead of really having the opportunity and the responsibility to look inward like you did, because that's the most freeing thing. But we start with identity and we cultivate through purpose. But the step before purpose, the step with the unbreakable journey that we have really put together in our framework before purpose is community. Because we believe that number one, purpose is always attached to people and you have to have a community to help you. And the other piece of that is community gives you a freedom to feel safe when you start something new.
So true. So true. And I think I encourage people to really step out and take those steps to find your people and find your connections and build that community. I think I'm very fortunate. I've always heard people say, like, as you get older, your circle gets smaller.
Sure.
I'm going to disagree with that.
Right.
And say, in personal experience, my circle has gotten so much bigger.
Right.
And I know that there are groups of people that I can tap into and they will be there for me in a minute.
Right.
Right. I have this really strong group of college girlfriends. We're on a group text. We try to do a trip together once a year at least. I know that anything I need, they will be there. And the same thing for these group of women and men and just connections that I've built here in Austin. I know the circle is far and vast. Yes, there are some people that are closer friends than others, but there's so many people that I know if I reach out to her or him, they can help me in an instant and they'll be happy to, because I've probably helped them at some point, and there's a trust there and there's a relationship there. And so life really is just about relationship building and making a connection and finding your community. People think community means like the city you live in or your neighborhood. That's not true. I mean, it is true. That is the use of that word, but community to me is your people, your
Right.
tribe,
Right.
you know.
Right.
Call it whatever you want, but it's so vital to living large, living happily, living in alignment,
Right.
you know. I mean, finding these people who think like you, talk like you, dream like you, plan like you, execute like you. You know, you don't have to be exactly the same, but you're all like when you're together with these groups of people, whether it's one-on-one or in a group, you're all just kind of buzzing the same.
Right. Well, you
Right?
talked about people that light you up, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And, I think there are multiple sources of community. We have our family community. Some of us have a church community.
Mhm.
And when you're looking at expanding in life, it requires a specific type of community of people that are going to make room for that as well,
Mhm.
right? Because there are some people like, as much as I love my church family, I don't think they really understand what Teresa Poor does. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it's okay.
Yes.
Like when we're together, we talk about our faith and we
Mhm.
talk about that piece of it and our family community. The problem I think that we run into and why people give up on their dreams so fast is they put pressure on the wrong people to be the right community.
Mm.
Right? They think that, okay, you're my tribe, so you need to be this for me. Well,
Yeah.
your situation was proof of concept that truly you've developed this community of people that are like-minded with where you're going,
Mhm.
that can be that support system for you. And so if
Yes.
somebody was like, gosh, Carrie, what does community look like? How do I develop or establish community with those types of people outside of coming to the Unbreakable conference? What would you recommend to them for finding their community or potentially cultivating it?
You know, I will say, I mean, I did immerse myself in the Chamber of Commerce and different networking groups and luncheons or conferences that looked attractive to me at that time.
Right.
I'm a pretty outgoing and friendly person, so it is nothing for me to just walk up to a stranger and say hello when I am somewhere. And I know that's not the same for all people.
Right.
You know, but I do talk about an intentional type of networking. And I don't like that word networking. It's overused, it has a negative connotation. I think when people say networking, you think of like having a business card in your hand, and you have your elevator
Flirty. Yeah.
speech, and you're walking in, and you're like, oh my gosh, who looks like a good person to meet? Like who's standing by themselves? And, you know, I hate when people think of that as networking,
Right.
but that's what the stigma is. When I walk into a room, whether it is a networking event or a conference or just a Pilates class, I just always kind of walk in open eyed and I'm looking. If I make eye contact with somebody, I always say hello. Like I always introduce myself. I always try to strike up a conversation, and I mean, even some of my best friends now, like I can't remember how we met.
Right.
I mean, I kind of know how I met you, but I couldn't tell you the day or the time or what the particular conversation was, or
Right.
I certainly didn't hand you a business card,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that's true for a lot of my friend group. We were just asking ourselves the other day, I'm like, when did we meet? What was it? Was it at this or was it at that? Or was it so
Mm.
random? And how special is that you don't really remember? It's just kind of like it
It's
happened,
always been
right?
there. Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. And it feels like, gosh, you've always been in my life. And it just kind of happened and it was meant to be. And I feel like that about a lot of people. And, so I just encourage people to just take the step. Sometimes it can be scary, for some people to say hello to someone new or to go to something, that you've not been to before, maybe that's a little out of your element. But I promise you, if you take the steps, you'll connect with at least one person.
Right.
Find something in common. When I kind of teach on intentional networking, like don't walk in there thinking about what you're going to talk about your business or what you're going to try to sell or what client you're going to try to get. I say, I walk into a room and I find somebody and I'm like, "Oh, I love that dress. Where did you get that?"
Mm.
Just have a normal human conversation.
Right.
The rest will come,
Right.
and that's how I go about it, and I think it's refreshing for a lot of people because I hate being asked, like, what do you do?
Right.
Well, I do a lot of things. What would you like to know about?
Right.
I'm what most people ask, right? When they walk into an
Well, you
event.
certainly have been conditioned for. I remember
Yeah.
when I first started in banking, somebody invited me to a BNI meeting, and I was 21 years old.
Mhm.
I knew nothing about networking or
Those are hardcore
and let me
networking.
tell you, like literally, I feel like BNI did one incredible thing for me is it got rid of my fear really fast of holding a microphone.
Yeah.
Because they just don't give you a chance to be afraid of it,
Right.
right? I mean, they
Right.
literally put the mic in my face immediately. And at 21 years old, I had no idea what I was doing or what to say. But I do remember fast forward about 15 years later when I was running my own networking group and I had everybody do their 15-second elevator pitches. And then at the end of it, when they got done, I literally in my subconscious mind brought to my consciousness said, "Who are you?"
Mm.
And it was almost like that moment that you've seen me put on the stage at the Unbreakable conference where we have, is it the caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland, right? And he's like, "Who are you?" Right?
Wow.
It was one of those moments that I was like, "No, Teresa, you're not just a vice president of the bank. You're not just a mom. You're not
Mhm.
just this. You're not, who are you?"
Yes.
And but we're so conditioned to have an answer like that validates us.
Mhm.
Like that puts all of the emphasis on what we produce as opposed to who we be. And I
Yes.
don't think we're human producing. I think we're human being, although we do produce humans. But
Yes.
when we think about it from that perspective, having that different shift, how can I show up for you when I come to your event? How can I serve you when I'm there? And not just how can I prove my value by giving you a title?
Yeah. One of my favorite questions I ever got was from this guy at the chiropractic office. I was getting off of one of the therapies and he was just a nicer guy. And he was like, "Hi, how are you doing today?" And I was like, "I'm doing great." He
Mm.
goes, "So what impact are you making on this world?"
Ooh. Oh,
And I think that was my face. And I was like, wow, I love that question.
sure.
I go, I think you could tell by my face that that's not something I've ever been asked before.
Wow.
And he was like, "Well, yeah, I like to ask people that." He goes, "I don't care what business you're running or what your title is." He's like, "I want to know about you."
Mm.
I was like, impactful,
Yeah,
right? What
absolutely.
impact are you making on this world? And that might seem a little like boom for a lot of people. Like, oh, I
Two
don't
different
know.
impacts, an
Yeah.
impact or an impact, right?
Yeah.
So that was a defining moment for you, Carrie.
Hmm.
So tell us a little bit
Yes.
about impact flow, because I
Yeah.
believe that that was a seed that was
Hmm.
planted for you.
Yeah. Impact was, again, a huge word for this year. Just first seeking,
Mhm,
what is my impact? Where am I supposed to be?
mhm,
Whose lives am I supposed to touch? What community am I supposed to be in?
mhm,
And then as all of this transpired, impact was always kind of at the front of my mind. It's on my banner on my LinkedIn, like this is who I am, whether I'm impacting a business or impacting a friend's life or impacting somebody that I just met. That's a word for me. And then flow comes in multiple ways. One, if we're talking cash flow,
sure.
or as my husband likes to call it, Cass flow.
Ah,
Little play on
Cass.
words.
Little play on names. Yeah.
Because when I'm consulting with businesses, where that's what you want, right? You want
Right.
cash flow into your business, but it also means like the flow of traffic and the flow of clients, and how is your team culture, right? I
Mm,
mean, that's a big part of it. How does that translate into the client or patient or guest experience, depending on what type of business you're in? And I've done all of these things and I incorporate it all together,
mm,
right?
mhm,
Like to get the cash flow, you have to have a happy team and a team that is serving and excited to be doing what they're doing.
mhm.
And that translates into very satisfied and happy guests or
The
clients,
comeback,
right?
refer.
And then that gives you the cash flow
Right.
coming in. And then there's all the things behind the scenes too.
Mm,
So I just look at it as it's a constant flow of things going on. There's no one definitive, like, we need to fix this and everything will be better. It's
mhm.
always, everything flows together, whether you're looking at business, whether you're talking about a family, whether you're talking about a friendship or a community or a networking group.
Right.
things flow and there's not just one sticking point or one pillar or one thing
Right.
that will get fixed or make things better, because everything constantly flows together, and that's life, and that's our planet, and that's faith and family, and anything that you're talking about. There is a flow and a steady flow and hopefully a constant flow.
Yeah.
And sometimes that flow stops and you have to figure out what made that happen and fix it, and then get everything flowing back together again.
That's beautiful. And that really flows right into alignment with our conference.
Yeah.
When we talk about what it is in the year of alignment, when things are in alignment, they flow. When they're not, you run into a guardrail.
Yeah.
Like I did.
Yeah.
And something has to be adjusted. And so, Carrie, you have had, well, let me just reverse. We have had the privilege of having you on our stage a couple of times as a speaker, as a panelist, and this time from a different hat with your own business and seeing I think it's so fun. I remember 2024. I don't think that's exactly when I met you, but that's the first time I really recognized you. I saw you from the stage when I was on the stage and you were at an Unbreakable conference. I think it was the January conference, our very first one. But so much has transpired since that. And to see you on the stage this time with this whole new energy and the alignment of all of it coming together, I am just grateful and blessed. But I would love to hear about what you're excited about for the conference.
Well, first of all, I'm very honored to be asked to be on this stage. I know what a special place it is, and I know what privilege you place on the Unbreakable umbrella and to anybody being able to step on that stage. So I do not take it lightly. I'm very honored that you asked me.
Thank you.
Alignment for me, I'm so grateful to be able to share this message. And sometimes I'm just so like, there's so many things that happened in this year that are falling into the alignment path for me, whether I'm talking about my marriage, right? A big jolt like that, a big financial jolt, can really make you go, okay,
Right.
what's our plan? What are we going to do? Sure, there's some panic moments. Sure, there's, some freak outs, but hey, this is our plan. This is what we're going to do.
This is who we are.
Yeah. Like, you're an entrepreneur now. Guess what? So am I. Apparently.
Get the business card.
Yes. Well, that's what I am now. Right. And we've just learned to really encourage each other and support each other and just listen and say, like, hey, we're going to make this happen. Right. We're going to make this happen no matter what. This is where we're meant to be. This is the path we're on. Nothing's going to stop us. Yeah. When you're talking about building a business, right? I didn't know what that looked like. It just really kind of came together and the pieces kind of fell, and Impact Flow Advisors the name was there, and the logo came together, and had a couple clients to start. And it just, again, it fell into alignment with me going, okay, this is what I want. I want to help businesses make an impact. I want to help leaders of businesses make an impact in their business, right? So just everything has really come full circle for me. And now the other doors are just opening up beyond belief. I've been invited on multiple podcasts. Speaking on the TEDx stage was quite an honor, and it was like one of the coolest moments, and it was such a special day. And they did such a great job with it. And the fact that we were in the round of, the first ones here, really grateful for that opportunity as well. But, just coming out of that and getting the feedback from people, has just really been astounding and fun and humbling, and hearing people say, what you said really resonated with me.
Right.
Can you come speak to my group? And that happened that day. And it's happened since, like, hey, that was really impactful. I think some of that would really resonate with my leadership team. Yes. Can you come speak to them? Do you do presentations, or do you only do big conferences? And so now I'm having to think, like, oh,
what do I do?
Yeah. So I'm really starting to piece out that keynote speaker or
Right.
presenter, all of these different avenues for myself. And I'm building a website, a Carrie Kass website, which was not on my radar, right?
Mm.
And so all of these things are happening, but I'm so excited about it. And I have all these ideas firing, which tells me this is who you are. This is in alignment with where you're supposed to be and the path that you're supposed to be on and the people that you're supposed to impact.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I think about the TEDx talk and knowing that was set up before the year. Like, when we're in alignment, things happen,
Mm-hmm.
doors open, waters part,
Mm-hmm.
people connect, right? And I think so much of that also happens because you're not in this mode. You're not having to try to control the outcome. You're not constantly pushing and hustle. And when that happens, things literally have the ability to flow to us.
Mm-hmm.
I think back of, you were asked to be part of this TEDx journey, I think in January,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then May comes around, and then here we are, your business is launching all at the absolute perfect
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I think that it's just a beautiful, beautiful piece. And Carrie, I think from the standpoint of having you on the Unbreakable stage, speaking to people about relationships and alignment, I couldn't have a better speaker to talk
Thank
about
you.
relationships for it, because I can tell that your heart is 100% for people.
Yeah.
And that is one of your values. And it's just, you exude people, and not a people pleasing, not at all, but a people serving and a people impacting
Yeah.
and a people empowering. And I know exactly what you're going to do from the stage on January 31st at the
Thank you.
Unbreakable
Yeah.
Conference. Yes.
I'm excited. Yeah,
I'm
very
excited for it.
excited.
Yeah. Well, Carrie, so many good things. I want you to take a moment, if you would, and talk to us about this a new book that you're getting ready to participate in. Love to hear
Yes.
that.
Well, a funny part of the story of landing on TEDx, and it goes back to Pieces to Purpose and the first Unbreakable conference that I spoke at. And Kay, who was the executive producer of the TEDx Round Rock, saw me speak at that conference. And so we connected after that, because some things that I said resonated with her, and we shared a moment. And then I ran into her at another conference, and we had another very strong personal shared moment. And so at that point, we just kind of started keeping in touch. That's how I even knew about. I might not have even really known about the TEDx opportunity if it hadn't have been through that trajectory. And so now Kay is with Coffee Milk Media, and she is doing an anthology called Voice and Vision. And I will be a contributing author. We start in January. I don't know anything about when the launch date is, sometime in 2026, probably the second quarter of the year or around there. But I'm really excited. I've seen a couple of the other women who are contributing, and I think it's going to be a really fantastic, impactful book. Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, I know this, whatever day it launches is going to be the perfect day because it's in alignment with where you're going.
That's true. Yes.
So fun. It's so fun to see,
Yeah.
to see all of these things happen. And, the truth is you prepared for it. We think about, I can just from the sides think about the work that you've done over the last couple of years where you've shown up for other people. You have, worked so hard to build somebody else's empire. You have done things over and over and over again to empower others. And Carrie, it's your time.
Yeah. It is my time, and I feel it, right? And it doesn't mean that other people aren't going to be on the ride with me. My goal is always to make an impact and touch people and connect people, and bring people together. But I do know, this is my time, and I'm excited for it, and I can feel it.
Yeah.
I can feel it.
I can feel it too.
Yeah.
The energy is exciting. It's electric.
Yeah.
Well, I know so many people are going to watch this podcast, and maybe some of them, Carrie, are going to think, how do I know when it's my time? Or maybe they'll think, gosh, I feel like Carrie. I feel like Carrie from 3 years ago, before her year of yes. And I feel like
Mhm.
I'm giving my all and I'm doing my all and I'm serving my all. And when will it be my time? And Carrie, for them, looking back at yourself from 3 years ago, what would you say?
Mm. I think and when you start listening to those little inklings in your head, those little whispers, of like, step out, there's something more, take a chance, just
Mhm.
say yes, go do that,
Mm.
reconnect with that person, don't burn that bridge, right? I think you might not even realize it's happening when it's happening. Again, I think there were a lot of things that were happening and that I was doing to lay the foundation for
Mhm.
what is happening right now.
100%.
And I couldn't have predicted how it was going to happen. It certainly wasn't a plan. It wasn't a blueprint,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
It was some messy squiggle of lines that ended up coming together
Yeah.
into this alignment for me, for Carrie Cass for 2026.
Right.
But, I think there's signs along the way. And again, now looking back, I can go, okay, like, yes, I was thinking that. And I did this to prepare for this. And I did
Mhm.
this to prepare for that.
Mhm.
But just listen to yourself. I mean, if you're feeling a pull to get out there and try something different, just say yes and do it. It's not hard, I promise. I think there's this stigma of like saying yes to something unknown is so like out of the ordinary. Just
Mhm.
just do it. Just give it a
Mhm.
shot,
Mm.
right? And the thing that it does is it opens up the things that you should then say no to, right?
Makes them
Because
visible.
through that, there were things that I'm like, this no longer serves me. And that
Mm.
doesn't mean that it was bad. It served me for a time.
Right.
I mean, I certainly made divisions and what networking groups are like really feed me
Right.
and where am I making an impact and where am I being impacted?
Mm.
And if they weren't on that list, I didn't pay the membership the next year, right? Or I didn't go to certain things. I didn't hang out with these certain people.
Right.
And when you start saying yes to the right things, and when you start getting in alignment with the path that you're supposed to be on, the things that you're not supposed to be doing or hanging out with or going to will be made very clear. And then it's very easy to just say, they served a purpose.
Mhm.
They were there for a season.
Mm. I agree. I think that one of the things that holds people back, I think, from saying yes to things is, of course, fear.
Mhm,
We and maybe it's a fear for some of rejection.
mhm,
Maybe it's a fear for some of abandonment. Maybe it's a fear of some for feeling less significant because I feel comfortable and significant here, and that's a new thing for me. I don't know if I'm going to feel like I can make a difference there,
mhm.
right? But it's usually attached to a fear. But I would say look at where Carrie's at today because she overcame that fear, whatever it was. Do you remember ever any fears that popped up in your mind as you were starting to say yes to things?
I don't know about fear. I mean, well, I guess I was fearful of writing in Pieces to Purpose,
Yeah.
and that was because it was a very personal story,
Mm,
and I knew I had to be very vulnerable in order for it to have impact.
mm.
And so that was a scary moment, especially when I hit send the first time. I was
Oh,
like,
right. Yeah.
when I started thinking about all the people that were going to read it,
Right.
and then discussions that were going to come out of it. I mean, I had a heavy sweat going on.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Um, but once I kind of sat in it a little bit, and just really came to terms with it, I'm like, you know what? This is my story
Yeah.
and it's okay.
Right.
And I didn't say anything that was hurtful. I just spoke truth
Mhm.
and how it affected me and how it shaped me. And nobody can change that.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to have a conversation about it, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
And there were some really wonderful conversations that came out of that, with college friends that didn't know everything that
Right.
was written in that chapter,
Right.
I mean, my husband knew all of the story, but I think even when he read it all
It
together,
was like, whoa,
it's
that is a
like,
lot.
that's a lot,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So yeah, it opened up some really beautiful conversations, and maybe there were pieces that affected one person and something else that really resonated with someone else, and I got to have these really deep personal, talks with people, and it really opened my eyes into what it means to be vulnerable and to share your true self in a space. And that's where I try to come from, whether it's like sitting here with you, writing in the next book. When I speak from stage, I really just speak from my soul and from my gut, and I just sit and let what I feel needs to come out that's right for the moment.
Well, I think in order to have the impact, vulnerability is a piece of the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
And for some, that is very scary. We live in a culture that, doesn't really talk much about being vulnerable. It certainly does promote filters and Christmas filters with us wearing sparkly jumpsuits, right? But vulnerability is a real thing. But when you think about the impacts that you want to make, and even from a leadership perspective, I tell you what, I will always have more respect for a leader that I felt like saw me and experienced some of the things that I felt than one who I felt was, untouchable, right? That everything was just perfect for them. So from a leadership place, I think vulnerability is an option and a necessity, right?
Yeah.
And from a relational place, I think there's a piece of vulnerability in your relationships that needs to exist. Otherwise, we become walls, and you can't really have, you can't hug a wall, right? You can run into a wall, but you can't hug a wall, right? And with children, like there's so many times where, that becomes piece of it. But that could be a total new conversation.
Yeah.
But
Say that's a different podcast.
yeah. And I'm sure we'll have to catch up with that one. But, Carrie, I think the work you're doing is truly impactful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And it's exciting to see. And I'm excited to see where Impact Flow Advisors goes and how many people you're able to impact. And I will know that a big piece of your impact is, number one, you show up. Number two, you're loyal. Number three, you love people and you're willing to put aside pride for exchange of vulnerability to make a real impact. And I think that's huge.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, friends, thank you for joining us today in this amazing, beautiful conversation with Carrie. She truly is someone that you need to know. I encourage you to go onto YouTube and check out her TEDx talk and get to understand some of the things that maybe some of the tips that she can give you around really how your network can become your net worth and how that can truly become your commerce. But I want to say there's so many gold nuggets and so many things that we could have unpacked here today. And you'll find her, you'll see her. Go check out her Substack. Is that what it's called? Substack. Check out her Substack, check out her YouTube and her Instagram page. And for sure, come and join us for the UnBreakable conference and learn about how she has established alignment in relationships and that wisdom she'll share from the stage. So until we see you next time, friends, continue getting into alignment so that you can build your